No one ever beats Canada at hockey. Period.
They did it too.
Never.
Well, that sucked. Hello everyone, welcome back to On the Fly. Today we are going to be taking a look at day one of the World Junior Championships currently be held in Halifax and Moncton. So yes, before I get too far into it, I have to address the obvious graphic concern. I'm not in a position to record right now. I'm not anywhere near the studio, so that being said, we're going to be running some graphics for the next little bit till we return back home and get the whole situation figured out. But with that being said, we'll hop into it today looking at the scores from today's game. So we're going to start off here with the second biggest upset of today. Not the first one, because the Switzerland-Finland upset isn't big enough. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But we'll take a look here with Switzerland beating Finland 3-2 in overtime. And in this game, I was quite surprised to see Switzerland playing a lot better than Finland has ever looked, really. And the way Finland played today was not their best work, but it was to a point where you still expect the Finns as a pretty skilled team to win. Nonetheless, Switzerland came out of nowhere, upsetting Finland in OT. That's 3-2 final. Was very surprised. Switzerland played probably one of their best games, and I expect them to carry that through. If Switzerland can beat a team like Finland in that sort of fashion, I see absolutely no reason why they won't be able to beat a team like the U.S., potentially even winning their group, although that might be a little bit of a stretch considering who they still have to play. But if Switzerland can continue to bring that performance, I don't see any reason why they won't be able to beat a team like the U.S., especially with the skill level that Finland has and the effort that they played today. I thought Finland played pretty well overall, but we'll get to sort of the bigger upset a little bit later, because that was just not even the biggest upset of today. I even said that's Switzerland beating Finland today was probably one of the bigger upsets that we'll see in this tournament, if not in the last few tournaments. Nonetheless, we'll move on to the second game of today with Sweden beating Austria 11-0. This game, throwaway game, obviously, nothing to really talk about here. The score really says it all, and I'm not going to really elaborate on it because an 11-0 game, really not much I can talk about. So we'll move on here to the third game of the day with the U.S. beating Latvia 5-2. And in this game, it was another one of those sort of games where Latvia held in there. Latvia as a hockey nation overall, you might not think they're the best, and I mean, they aren't necessarily the most skilled, but the way they play hockey is really sort of a special way. They're not necessarily going to be the most skilled team on paper, but they're going to outwork you in every facet of the game. And just the way they played today, they held the U.S. 3-2 through pretty much the back half, the start of the third and the back half of the third before the U.S. put 2 in. And once there's a big enough score, Latvia, not necessarily the most skilled team, isn't going to be able to come back from a large margin. However, they continue to play that sort of that structured defense style, win 2-1, win 1-0. I don't see a reason why Latvia shouldn't be able to beat a few teams at this tournament, potentially making it to the quarterfinals, potentially making it to the semis. Definitely will be interesting to continue to watch them throughout the rest of this tournament. The U.S. looked pretty good, I thought, overall. Obviously, when you're playing a collapsing style of defense, it's really hard, especially as a skilled team, to work around that. And we'll get to that a little bit later with Canada, has their own issues to worry about right now. But with the U.S., I don't see any problems with them. They're going to play some more teams coming up where there'll be a lot more room to skate. One team I'd probably see another sort of Latvia-style defenses with Slovakia. But overall, I don't really see a problem there. And I think when you look at the U.S. especially, they'll figure it out. They have probably one of the best teams on paper, so they shouldn't have a problem the rest of this tournament, especially in Group B with Finland. Be easier to see how U.S.-Finland works out, because Finland should be contending with the U.S. on paper. However, with their loss to Switzerland today, it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back, but we'll get to that also a little bit later on. But now we'll talk about the Canada game. And this is my current reaction to this. I don't really know what to say. It's extremely disappointing, to say the least. You have probably one of the most hyped up tournaments coming in, and you put out a performance like that, where you go up 1-0, great. You're looking great as a team. You're 10 minutes in, you score a goal. The crowd's behind you, and then you go around and play self-entitled with their heads, like they're chickens with their heads cut off, and they're only playing for themselves. Like, I understand you want to score goals. We all want to score goals, and I understand at the highest level you want to score goals. But at the end of the day, you want to score your goals for your team. That's the whole point of hockey. You want to be your team. You want your team to win. And right now, from what I've seen from Canada at least, they just want to win for themselves. They don't care about their team. And the way they played today really shows who they are right now, who they are as a hockey nation, and it reflects extremely poorly on Hockey Canada, although, let's be honest, Hockey Canada has been a mess of their own. But when you look at this, this is a poor reflection of Hockey Canada. You're going to go out there and you're going to play, you're going to do Michigan shots up 1-0 with really, what's the point? You're the best players in the world. You're the best team on paper. And no offense to the Czechs, but you lose 5-2 to the Czechs. It's the Czechs. And, I mean, the Czech goalie stood on his head, yes. But at the end of the day, if you're going to play 1-on-5, you're not going to win. And the Czechs, all credit to them, let Canada play 1-on-5. And that's why they won today. It was 5-2. 2 goals came off a lousy penalty. 4 of those goals, total goals today, came off a goaltender that wasn't ready to play. And Canada can't put a puck in the net to save their lives because they're shooting from the hash marks. Not even the hash marks, from the other side of the hash marks, in the corner. Like, what are we doing there? Canada needs to figure it out. They have a game Wednesday against the Germans. If there's any time to see Canada bounce back, it's Wednesday. They need to win Wednesday if they want any shot at even coming close in this tournament. Historically, they've been bad starters, and I can understand that. But this is just a lousy performance, to say the least. They got to understand that their team has to come first in this, and right now, let's be honest, it's not. So, that being said, we'll move on here to the Group A standings. Sweden, Czechia, both regulation wins, 3 points for them. Germany hasn't played yet. Canada, with their lousy performance, 1 regulation loss, tied with Austria for last place. Obviously, the 5th place spot this year does have relegation, so they'll be knocked out of the tournament playing against the other Group B here, which we'll look at now. U.S. in the first place, one regulation win. Switzerland with 2 points with an overtime win. Finland with the overtime loss, 1 point. Slovakia hasn't played yet. Latvia with 1 regulation loss. So right now, Latvia and Austria are the 2 teams in the relegation spot. Although you could argue Canada is also in the relegation spot, depending on what the heck happens there. So that being said, we'll take a look at tomorrow's game. So at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Slovakia is going to play Finland. So it's going to be interesting to see how Finland bounces back in that game. Slovakia, first game of the tournament. We'll see how they end up coming out. Finland's on a back-to-back, so they might be a little bit tired coming off of a relatively long performance. It wasn't necessarily their best effort. They could have done a lot better, but at the end of the day, we'll see how they perform. We have the second game of the day, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My opinion is going to be the game of the day between Sweden and Germany. So in this game, I expect Sweden to win by a fair margin. Not necessarily the biggest of margins, but at the same time, it's going to be a pretty solid margin overall. With that being said, Germany is a team that's either going to come out guns a-blazing, they're going to do amazing in this tournament, or they're going to be close to relegation. I think Austria will have something to say about that. But those are the 2 teams where I do expect them to be neck and neck. I think it's going to be a pretty solid game overall. I think Sweden takes the edge. Third game of the day between Latvia and Switzerland. Going to be interesting to see how Latvia comes back. If Latvia can play the way they did against the U.S., I think they have a pretty solid shot against the Swiss. It's going to be interesting to see that one. That's coming up at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Austria and Czech, 6:30. I expect that game to be a blowout if Czechs play anything like they did tonight. Going to be a pretty large margin. With that being said, though, I did say Canada was going to blow out the Czechs. I said Finland was going to beat the Swiss by a large margin. And I also said Sweden was going to beat Austria by a large margin, and the U.S. beating Latvia. So we'll see if that also happens, but we'll take a look at the news from today's game. So Zach Dean, potential suspension for a hit to the head. I expect that to be 1 or 2 games. It wasn't necessarily the most vicious of hits, but at the same time, the IHF is extremely, extremely intolerant of any sort of hit to the head. So I do expect Dean will get at least 1 or 2 games. I'm interested to see what that is. Top of that, Czechia beats Canada for the first time in 3,285 days. Good for them. Congratulations, Czechia. You played an absolutely horrendous Canada team tonight. And congrats on the 3 points. So we'll see if you guys can knock out Canada this year for the top 2 spots. And with that, moving on to the last thing. Switzerland upsets Finland in overtime. This was another one of those big upsets. But with that being said, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really like to, consider subscribing. Tell all your friends. Leave a comment down below your thoughts on day 1 of the World Junior Championship. Until next time, see ya.